Welcome to my Biden versus Trump winter predictions, so let's start. And there we go, there are a couple states that are sticking out like a sore thumb. So for Indiana, it would 100% almost certainly be a safe race for Donald Trump, and the reason why I do have it not filled in yet is because with Mike Pence not on the ticket, I do think the margin will drop a slight bit. I'm not too sure how much, but I'm guessing something like 15% to 17%, and for another state that is around that margin of Indiana, for Colorado. So Colorado, it really is keeping up and trending more to the left, as seen by 2016 to 2020 and the midterms that we just saw. It really is looking awful for the GOP in this state, and I see Joe Biden winning here by 15%. 15, yeah, I'm gonna say 14% to 16%, but it could even be bigger than that margin, and I would not be surprised. For Missouri, easy win for Donald Trump there. I think it would be around 12% to 14%. I think it would drop slightly bit. I think Donald Trump has lost a lot of the independent appeal, and that's about it. For Virginia, my opinion is that Donald Trump has really pushed this state more and more to the left, and that's why I think that this state would actually be a safe state in 2024. Barely, I think, will be just about that safe margin threshold of around 12%. And now for the likely states, let's start off with the first one that is really interesting in my opinion, for Kansas. So in Kansas, 2020, it was 14%, and it actually voted to the left of Missouri. And with Donald Trump not at his best and really lacking appeal to new voters, it's going to be quite hard to replicate the numbers that he had in 2016 and 2020, which is why, and the fact that Kansas is slowly, in my opinion, trending to the left to some degree, I actually do have likely Kansas. I'm guessing by like 11.5%, and for other likely states, the next one will be Iowa. I think there's a decent chance that Donald Trump actually picks someone like Joni Ernst or Kim Reynolds, who are politicians in Iowa, which really could swing the state really even further than 2016. I at the moment do have this as a likely state for Donald Trump, but I would not be surprised if it actually is a safe state in 2024. I have this by a margin of 10% to 12% for Donald Trump. And now to the northeast in Maine. So for Maine at large, I don't think that much will change really. I think it's gonna keep out around 8% to 10%. So likely win for Biden here. And oh wait, I almost forgot. Sorry about that. For South Carolina, yes, it would just barely be, I think, below a safe margin. I'm gonna say 10% to 12% for Donald Trump. Almost forgot about that one. And let's go back to the Rust Belt. So for Ohio, I think unlike Iowa, I think Iowa has more room for the Republicans to grow in the future. But I think Ohio it's almost certainly gonna stay the same. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like 7.9% win for Donald Trump. I do think he will win here, of course, but I'm gonna say 7% to 9% is a pretty decent guess in my opinion. And now for New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, it is looking like it's getting worse for the Republicans. I think 2016, Trump had a lot of appeal to moderates, but yeah, we saw that swing from 2016 to 2020, and I mean, you can't say never in politics. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually somehow trends to the left of 2020, but I'm gonna say it's probably gonna stay in that area. I think it's a Biden win no matter what, by a margin of 6% to 8%, but it wouldn't surprise me if it even moves to the left of 2020. As well, for the 2nd district in Maine, so in Maine, the 2nd district, it was really good for Trump in 2016. He did drop a bit in 2020, but I don't think it will change that much because of how it's the same candidates just 4 years later. So I think Trump's appeal in this area wouldn't be too much different to what we saw in 2020. I think maybe he could drop a bit. I don't see it being too much of a drop in this state, and I see him winning here, the 2nd district, by 6% to 8%. He will lack some of the independent appeal that he had previously, but I think Maine's 2nd district will be an easy one for him. And now let's go to Florida. So Florida, as we saw in 2022, it really was a huge win for the GOP. And it's almost certainly saying that it will 100%, it will move to the right of 2020. 2016, 1.2, 2020, 3.4. It's almost certainly going to be a likely state for whoever the GOP nominee is. And I think Donald Trump will win here. I'm gonna say 6% to 8%, but it could really be even further than that. But yeah, I think that's a decent margin. And that's about it. And now for the more close likely states, in my opinion, for the first one. But before that, actually, I almost forgot. For New Mexico, I think New Mexico, it's a state that I'm really looking forward to see how it trends in 2024. I think it votes to the right of 2020, of course. I'm gonna say Biden will win here by a likely margin, but I'm gonna say 7 to 9%. And for the low likely states, for the first one, for Minnesota, I think Minnesota, sorry about that. In Minnesota, I think it will move to the right of 2020. I think so, but who knows really. In my opinion, I see Joe Biden winning here by a margin of 5% to 7%. I think Democrats will do quite well in this decade in Minnesota. In the presidential level, as long as there's no major depression, they should be able to win this huge state for the Democrats. And since we are on the Rust Belt for the 2nd district, it is quite similar. They only had a 0.5 difference in 2020, and it's probably going to be quite similar. It could drop. I do think this could very well be a lean state. It depends, because if Donald Trump picks someone from Iowa as his running mate, then this will 100% drop from this margin. But I have this barely going by a likely margin. It's literally 5% on the dot. It would drop, of course, from the last election, but it could drop a margin if Donald Trump picks someone like Joni Ernst. But for now, likely D win for Joe Biden here. And for the last low likely state, I'm gonna say for Alaska. So Alaska, it is quite an interesting state to talk about. And in 2016, it went to Trump by 14%, and it dropped massively in 2020 to 10%. And I don't know what's gonna happen in this state in the future. A lot of people are saying that it will trend to the left, and I do think it will. I'm not too sure how ranked choice voting will go here, but I'm gonna say, with Donald Trump not being at his best and really having extremely low approval ratings, I'm gonna say this will be a likely state, but by a low margin of 5% to 7%, almost a lean margin. And that's it for the likely states. So as you can see, these are the numbers at 226 for Biden and 179 for Donald Trump. And for the first lean state, let's talk about Michigan. So Michigan, it is quite a good state for the Democrats, it looks like, at the moment. And it could really even trend, not trend, but move to the left of 2020 and 2024. And I see Biden and Kamala Harris, which I assume will be his running mates in 2024, winning here by a lean margin of 2% to 4%. Let's go to Georgia. So Georgia, it has been trending to the left quite a hefty bit, even from 2020 to 2022. If you look at the numbers, actually, which I've shown in the past, it even is trending. In just 2 years, it has trended even more to the left, which is really crazy and tells you how much it is trending for the Democrats. And I have this as a lean state for the incoming president, Joe Biden. I have him winning here by 1 to 3%. I think that's a fair margin, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does even better than that. And yeah, so for the next one, for Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, which is basically Joe Biden's home state, I actually do think at the moment, since Donald Trump is really in his lowest points at the moment, I think he would actually do even better than 2020, I think. And I have Joe Biden winning here by, I'm gonna say 2%. I think Donald Trump wouldn't be the right candidate in 2024. He would run on really niche things that would not appeal to independent voters. And yeah, I think 2% win for Joe Biden here, 1 to 3%. And now for Arizona, Arizona's a rogue shout to maybe even be further to the left than Pennsylvania and Georgia, because we know that Trump really bashes on John McCain, and a lot of those voters, even though they might not align at all or almost nothing with Democrats, they will vote for the Democratic Party just despite Donald Trump. And that is really why we saw, Carrie Lake lost, because of the fact that she bashed the McCain Republicans, and they just voted Democrats just as a revenge against her. And Donald Trump will be the worst candidate for Arizona, which is why I actually have this voting to the left of 2020. And I see, at the moment, I do see Arizona going for Joe Biden for the second time by 1 to 3%, but just like Georgia, it could even be further than that, as we saw in the midterms, which was really the worst case scenario, and shows that Trumpism in Arizona is really not going well for them. And now, let me see. Finally, for Texas. So Texas has always been one of Trump's Achilles heels, and he has always lacked in this state, as seen by the fact that, we can just go, 2012, not Driver Booster, 2012 to 2016, that margin drop is insane, and it keeps dropping, and I expect it to drop once again in 2020, just because of the fact that Trump really doesn't suit Texas. He suits other states, but Texas is not really his best state, and it would drop to a lean margin. I'm gonna say 1 to 3%. It would drop, but I don't think it would be enough for Joe Biden. So, move it to tilt or even flip it at the moment. I don't think it will flip, but who knows. But for now, for the winter prediction, I actually do have, lean R, Texas, which is a drop from the last time. And now for the tilt states. For the first one, that is a high tilt state. For Nevada, I actually have, I actually have Nevada voting to the right of Arizona, which would be quite a historic moment, I think. Nevada, as we saw in 2022, Republicans, if they run a good campaign, they can actually win Nevada, but I'm not too sure. It could also be a lean state just like Arizona, but for the moment, I'm gonna have this as a high tilt state. I think Trump would still do quite well in the rural areas, which is where Adam Laxalt actually lacked in 2022, and I see him doing enough to put the rural numbers up and really pushing it just barely below that lean margin, around I'm gonna say 0.75%, but it could even be 0.9%, just barely a tilt state in my opinion. And now for basically, in my opinion, the Tossups in this scenario. For Wisconsin and North Carolina. So for Wisconsin, 2020, it barely went for Joe Biden, and actually in 2016, Trump actually won by a bigger margin. But in 2020, the main issue for Trump is that, I should say 2024, the main problem is that Trump is lacking appeal towards independent voters and new voters, which is why I do have Joe Biden winning Wisconsin for a second time by a really close margin of around 0.5% to 0.75%, even though this could be one of the flips alongside Nevada. For Donald Trump at the moment, for this winter prediction, I do have Wisconsin being blue, just like the Rust Belt, just like the rest of the Rust Belt. And yeah, for the final one for North Carolina. So North Carolina, it was a bad showing for Donald Trump in 2020, and he barely won it by a lean margin, and if he runs again, I do think North Carolina would vote to the left of 2020. A lot can happen until 2024 with the economy, gas prices, but whatever happens, it really is looking like North Carolina will be closer than 2020, and I have Trump barely winning this state by a tilt margin of, I'm gonna say 0.25% to 0.5%. And as you can see, this would be a pretty boring election and a repeat in 2024, and Joe Biden gets 303 electoral votes while Donald Trump gets 235 electoral votes. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a like, join the channel membership, and see you next time.